Okay. This is better. So here is the difference. So this is a air in the stomach and there is no air. So this is a supine radiograph. There is another difference. We can see this air fluid levels. The air fluid levels will appear when the patient is erect in a normal radiograph. So supine radiograph and erect abdomen radiograph. So we saw there are only three things that will show the presence of bowel in a normal if it is not associated with any pathology. So what is the things? That is the gas, that is the air fluid level, and another thing is that fecal matter. So only by these three things we will know the presence of gas, or the gas shadows will be depicted in a plain abdominal radiograph without any pathology. Only if we see, or only if we know that how is the gas pattern, how are the air fluid levels and the fecal matter. So to know any pathology that is associated with the bowel, we have to have the barium study done next to the patient. So normal shadows cast by bowel on a radiograph will be only three. What are the rest structures that we can see on the abdominal radiograph? So we are going to go with the barium. So I am concentrating more on the gas pattern and this. But the rest of the things that we see on abdominal radiograph are renal shadows, shadows of a soft tissue. Okay, viscous. So that those will be liver, spleen, both kidneys, bladder, sauce. What else we have? We have this peritoneal fat layers. We have lower ribs, vertebral column, and the pelvic girdle. So these are the points that we look for. So we screen the patient from, we screen the film from diaphragm to pubic symphysis, peritoneal layers to the lateral most side, then the soft tissue shadows, then the bony structures, then the bowel, and look for any calcifications. So how do a normal gas pattern would look like? The stomach, there will always be an air present. Okay, and there will always be air present in rectum. Small bowel will give only 2 to 3 bowel loops, which will be non-distended when they are less than 2.5 centimeters in diameter. Now we know that this is how the normal gas pattern will look like, but then we need to differentiate. Other than anatomical positions, how we will know that this gas belongs to this bowel part? So here comes the role of the haustra for the colons and the volvula conventis for the small bowel. So what is volvula conventis? They will give complete ring-like appearance. They are the thin complete rings crossing across and across the lumen, while the haustra are the thick projections. So they are not complete. They will be protruded into the lumen. So other than anatomical landmarks, these are the things that will lead us that the bowel gas that we are seeing on a radiograph belongs to which part of the bowel. So that's the same. Then we come to air fluid levels. We have 3 air fluid levels that are considered as normal. So stomach will have always air fluid level when it is an erect radiograph. Small bowel will always give 2 to 3 air fluid levels. How do we know that this is an air fluid level and not just the air? We get this sharp demarcated line and air meniscus above. So this is air fluid and not just the air. And we will never have any air fluid level. We will have just air in the large bowel. So now we know how a normal gas pattern, fluid pattern, and soft tissues look like. So anything other than that is abnormal. So what could be the abnormal? There could be abnormal air. Abnormal intraluminary air is the abnormal bowel distension. Then if the air is seen outside the bowel wall, it is a pneumoperitoneum, and if it is seen in the bowel wall, then it is necrotizing enterocolitis. What other conditions that you can think of? So abnormal air, abnormal bowel dilation, then abnormal fluid levels, abnormal soft tissue, and calcifications. Any calcifications could be pathological or the physiological ones. So we know the normal gas pattern. So anything other than that is abnormal. Let's proceed to the barium studies. So as I said, with the advent of this contrast agents and CT and scopic examination, these procedures are becoming more and more obsolete now. Barium sulfate is the contrast agent that we use. Barium itself is in powder white form. and we form an insoluble salt of the barium, and the quality of insolubility is more important because it is then not absorbed in the GI tract, and then it will not give any adverse reactions. It will lead to adverse reaction only if it leaks out of the bowel lumen. It is insoluble, but it can be suspended in water. So, because of this quality, we can make various preparations from thin to thick and use it for particular imaging of the bowel segment. So this is microbath, this is commonest used agent. What is the contraindication to this positive oral contrast? Is suspected perforation, because then they said when it is like leaked out of the bowel lumen, it will cause the inflammatory reaction to the surrounding structure such as mediastinitis or peritonitis. But then when there is already a perforation and something out of the gastric lumen is already there into the adjacent cavity, some sort of peritonitis is already there. So we can call it this as a relative contraindication. It is not absolute, and when there was nothing else available, barium studies were still performed in the patients with suspected perforation. Then we should know what is this double contrast barium study. What do we use? We use positive contrast and we use the negative contrast as well. So we distend the lumen with the negative contrast, and this positive contrast then gets close to the mucosal surface. And that is how the mucosal lining is well depicted, and we get like more sensitivity for the R examination. What are the negative agents that can be used? They depend on the study which we are going to do. So if we are going to go with the barium swallow, effervescent agent like just an Eno powder is used. And if we are going to go like double contrast barium enema, we actually install air through pump per rectum. So coming to barium swallow, it is a dedicated test to visualize the pharynx, esophagus and the proximal stomach. It can be done with the single or double contrast. The indication for the barium swallow is difficulty in swallowing. Most of the patients require no preparation at all. Visualization of pharynx is the most difficult part of the barium swallow, and it is most important too. So what do? We give patient a mouthful of thick barium paste. Ask him to hold it, swallow it, then stop it. So one swallow, one stop, and intermittently we expose the patient for the radiograph. What we do? We took lateral and anteroposterior projections centered at the neck base. A neck is slightly elevated. If you have only one projection that needs to be taken, it should be lateral, because then they say vallecula, piriform cervensis will be well depicted on the lateral radiograph. Then we can continue with the multiple boluses for the examination of the esophagus, and we take AP and oblique projection of the chest, and when we have to visualize the OG junction, we will use the right anterior oblique view. So this is the visualization of the one lateral radiograph wherein the oropharynx, hypopharynx is delineated. This is how the normal will look like. As you can see, this is in double contrast. This is AP view wherein there is a valleculae, piriform sinuses, and what we see in between is the epiglottic flow. This is probably the most important visualization, the lateral and the anteroposterior. If you get this image, you are done with your pharyngeal examination. But then, in practical, it is always not so. We may visualize it in various phases of swallowing. So when the contrast bolus passes, then there is distension of the valleculae. It goes down. Then we get a feeling defect. What could be this? This is the epiglottis getting closed in the middle with the phase of the swallowing. So all these are normal appearances. We will never know where, in which phase of swallowing we are taking the radiograph. Then we continue further with the entire length of the esophageal visualization, and we need a right anterior oblique projection for the visualization of the OG junction. We should know the three physiological constrictions so that we do not confuse it with the pathology. So though they lie superiorly at the level of cricoid cartilage, middle at the level of the aortic crossing, where the aorta and the left main bronchus crosses the esophagus, and inferiorly at the diaphragmatic sphincter. And then there are three indentations which are at the aortic arch, left main bronchus and left atrium. Imagine when the 2D echo was not so advanced, or even the sonography was not advanced, to delineate the extent of the left atrium enlargement, barium swallow was done. we have come far from that. So these are the indentations that lie. This is of the aortic arch, left main bronchus, and then that of the left atrium. So now we know how it looks, how the procedure is done, and how the normal things will look like on a barium swallow. What abnormalities we look for? The abnormality first will be obstruction to the flow of the contrast. There could be narrowing to the column. There could be irregularity of. Okay, sir. We'll go to further slide. So anything that we do not see normal is abnormal. Okay. So the next procedure is barium Meehl follow through. So Meehl is actually an imaging of a stomach, and follow through is imaging of the small bowel until the IC junction. It can be done in single or double contrast, and there is something which is called as enteroclysis that we should know of, wherein the tube is passed beyond the gastric antrum, and then we avoid the steps of swallow and Meehl, and we visualize directly the barium lining the small intestine. So that is enteroclysis. How it is done? There are like various projections that are needed. We'll go to just normal anatomy. So this is how it would look like. Gastric fundus, lesser curvature, body, and the gastric pylorus. You can see the various patterns. These are gastric rugae. These are transverse mucosal folds along the gastric curvature. So everything that I have seen is just the normal anatomy, how the Meehl study with a distended stomach would look like. So for the follow through, we just follow the patient with a 15 to 20 minutes interval until the contrast reaches the 6 base, and it may take from 2 to 6 hours. So that is a lengthy procedure. How do it looks like? So we get to know the duodenum, jejunum, and the ileal folds. Now the job of us to differentiate which folds we are looking. So duodenum will always look like a C shape with duodenal cap, second, third, and fourth part. You can see the change in mucosal pattern. So that is particular for this particular part of the duodenum, and the more it goes distal, the more it resembles the small bowel. So how do we differentiate between the jejunal and the ileal loops? Other than the anatomical position, again the mucosal pattern helps us. It is feathery when it is in the jejunal mucosa, so it is more closely placed, and they are more widely placed when it is the ileal. And these are the spot compression images we may require to visualize the IC junction. This was very important when we had like too many patients of intestinal tuberculosis. This was the one film that was required to demonstrate or rule out. So coming to barium enema, it is imaging of a colon. We actually inject the contrast per rectum and follow it till again the IC junction. As I said, the only indication nowadays is clinically stable patients of intussusception. Then these are the various projections depending upon which part of the colon that we are visualizing. This is how it will look like. We need a post-evacuation film also to see whether there is an obstruction present or there is dysmobility disorders. So rectum, sigmoid, the descending colon, transverse colon, and ascending colon. Here also the IC junction is not visualized. The double contrast we have seen. So anything that is different from whatever normal pattern we have seen is abnormality. So it would be obstruction to flow, it would be narrowing of the column, it is the irregularity of margins which is well depicted on double contrast, feeling defect, intrinsic depression, or outpouching. So I hope I have given you small insight in the barium procedures, which was like some era and some art. The takeaway points would be, one needs to visualize the entire segment of the bowel and then re-evaluate if there is any suspicious area. We always need modification to our examination under the fluoroscopic observation. So one needs to be active following the patient in a barium procedure. And it is said that if you are suspecting an abnormality, if it is seen in more than 2 films, only then it is called as abnormality. Then other than that, it could be just partial projection, some peristaltic movement, or so many other physiologies. So that's all from me. Thank you for your patient listening. Don't forget to attend our cultures at the evening. Thanks a lot.
Doctor, I'd like to request Dr. Ramesh Malani sir and Dr. Ajay Jadhav sir to come up on the stage, as they both will be chairpersons for this session. Now, I would like to request Dr. Ramesh Malani sir to felicitate Dr. Shubhangi Shetkar ma'am.